Alright everybody, so we had one of our major recent theories confirmed, which is that Emu did arrive at God Valley, setting up for probably the most hype imaginable possible matchup in all of One Piece history, which is Rock's Whitebeard Kaido versus Emu, and very likely soon, Roger and maybe even Garp thrown in the mix as well, based on the final events of this chapter. So, insanely exciting chapter, insanely exciting setup by Oda. God Valley is delivering on an even higher level than I think any of us could have imagined, because for the longest time we were pitched that, God Valley, big matchup between the Rocks Pirates versus the Roger Pirates and Garp on the same side. That was the idea, but what we've come to realize is there was a bigger fish that Oda wanted to bring into the equation all along. So somehow Oda managed to top the most anticipated matchup in One Piece history with an even more exciting surprise matchup. Like, do you know how insane it is that we are finally going to get to see Emu fight, and the first time that we get to see him in action is going to be against Rocks, Whitebeard, Kaido, Roger, and maybe Garp? What the f***? Congratulations to chapter prediction winner Justin Holland, who did predict that Emu would be coming to God Valley this chapter. Make sure to tune into Monday streams to get in on the chapter predictions competitions. But first, you don't want to miss this. If you've always wished that you could play an anime MMORPG, Blue Protocol Star Resonance is the game that you've been waiting for. What's most amazing is how alive and immersive this anime world is. There are genuinely endless possibilities. You can raid giant bosses with your friends, but also just relax, fishing by riverside, crafting gear, or even setting off fireworks in town. It really is more than just combat. This is an anime world you actually get to live in. I'm also really looking forward to being able to swap classes on the fly. Tank, healer, DPS, you can try them all out. And you can customize your character to really stand out. And the dungeon co-op raids are designed to be the perfect mix of easy to pick up but high skill ceiling, featuring multiple difficulty levels that cater to both hardcore combat enthusiasts and casual players seeking more relaxed fun. So if you're excited like me, then click the link to download below, and get ready to explore Magna when Blue Protocol Star Resonance drops. Don't miss out on the exclusive limited time redemption codes. Get your friends and start playing. So that aside, even before we get to the climax of this chapter, every single scene of this chapter was really, really strong. One, I enjoyed the Rocks Pirates basically setting aside some of their differences with the Roger Pirates for the sake of helping Shaki. Now, of course, not everybody did this, but Shiki was looking out for Shaki. Whitebeard obviously understands that it's no longer an issue having to fight the Roger Pirates to get to Shaki, because the Roger Pirates really got Shaki, nothing else to be done there. I like the fact that we got to see a lot of honor from some members of the Rocks Pirates, and then obviously a lot of the lesser members of the Rocks Pirates didn't quite show as much character. And interestingly, it's many of the stronger, more legendary figures of the Rocks Pirates that showed honor this chapter, which was of course Whitebeard standing by Rocks at the end, Kaido standing by Rocks at the end, Shiki looking out for Shaki and actually setting aside his differences with the Roger Pirates to protect them. It makes sense that these future Emperors of the Sea, and Shiki was an Emperor of the Sea, these future Emperors of the Sea, these Conquerors Haki figures, they're the ones that we see these sort of great displays of character from. Now, the Kaido Big Mom incident, I will say, doesn't make either of them look that good, and I think that who you think is right or wrong in the situation, I could honestly see an argument for either side. I don't think it's supposed to be black and white on Oda's part. I think he's trying to portray it as this being a very dividing moment for Kaido and Big Mom, where they both sort of feel betrayed. Because from Kaido's perspective, Big Mom's been kind of this big sister who's kind of been telling him that, like, yeah, I'll help you get, a devil fruit. I'll help you get a devil fruit. To be fair, I went back and looked through a lot of the panels of this flashback, and while Big Mom does encourage the notion that she will probably be helping Kaido get a devil fruit, it's really Kaido who keeps asking for confirmation and affirmation from Big Mom that you are getting me a devil fruit, right? You are getting me a devil fruit. It feels like he's kind of holding her to an oath, whereas I don't think she ever really makes it clear that, like, you're my number one priority, Kaido. I'm only here at God Valley for you to get you a devil fruit. But if you go back through the dialogue, it does seem clear that Kaido would naturally be under the impression that Big Mom is going to help him get a devil fruit. So when he sees Big Mom get a devil fruit, and it seems like she's not actually going to share it with him, he probably in his mind is justified being like, this woman betrayed me. I am going to take what is rightfully mine. I'm a pirate, yada yada. She's gonna act like a pirate. I'm gonna act like a pirate. I'm taking that from you. So from Kaido's perspective, I can see it being justified. At the same time, from Big Mom's perspective, just because she has implied that she will help Kaido get a devil fruit, that doesn't mean that she's also going to abandon her own child and only prioritize getting Kaido a devil fruit. Two things can be true in that Big Mom, she rightfully earned this fruit. She has the right to give it to who she wants, which is probably her child first and foremost. And then after that, she could still try to help Kaido get a devil fruit. I don't think she says anywhere that her only purpose in God Valley is to get Kaido a devil fruit. Like, from Big Mom's perspective, Kaido basically backstabbed her without giving her a chance. So I can see where their animosity came from, and it actually is sad, because then if you go back to Wano and you see the dynamic that they sort of reforge, and you think back to how close they used to be, and then you can see in Wano also that both hint at potentially betraying each other down the line. But then Kaido's also really sad when Big Mom goes down. Now we have the full picture of just how tumultuous their whole dynamic was, and I do think a lot of it comes down to basically a moment where, you know, neither of them was necessarily in the right or the wrong, and maybe if they'd just taken a moment to trust each other a little bit more, maybe things wouldn't have gone this way. So I really like the Kaido and Big Mom dynamic now, and I think it does actually have a good deal of depth now that we have a better understanding post-Wano. Now, an even more important revelation this chapter was Garp's name is officially cleared. Garp did not know what the Celestial Dragons and the Marines actually do at these events. This confirms that Garp has never knowingly supported any of the Celestial Dragons' heinous acts. And he actually has a big problem with the fact that they do this. And if you want to jump and be like, well then why didn't Garp after learning this do this or that? Just wait. Wait so that you can find out what actually is the deal behind this character, because from everything Oda has been slowly spelling out for us with Garp, he is a good guy, he does not listen to the Celestial Dragons, he ignores orders from the Marines if he feels they do not fit his moral compass, he now sees the problems with the system, and he is not the type of man to sit by idly and just let things happen. We need a better understanding of why he chooses the path that he chooses from here on, but his name is cleared for everything that has happened so far. And we get a clearer picture, too, of how these hunting competitions work. So, I have long explained that for the normal citizens of the world, their experience with the world government tends to be very positive. And this is shown many times throughout the One Piece story, which is that the average citizen cannot comprehend the notion that the world government might be evil, because from their perspective, the world government has marines that protect them from pirates, etc., etc. This whole system would not work if the Celestial Dragons were regularly doing hunting competitions. Remember, there's a reason that the whole Ohara incident was such a big deal, because it's an anomaly. It's not usual that the marines, the world government, the Celestial Dragons just genocide entire islands. So what we just found out is that the reason that the hunting competitions were so common but not a big problem for the citizens of the world is that the Celestial Dragons are very careful to not do the hunting competitions to any of their member nations, and just like that, everything clicks into place. Oda has explained this many times before. So the way the world government functions is basically like this protection racket. If you serve us, if you pay us celestial gold and buy into the whole world government system, then you're safe. We will give you marine protection, etc. You'll be kept safe from pirates for the most part. But if you don't pay us the celestial gold, then you're out of the bubble, and now, as Marco explained, number one, what happens is that your island can now be run over by pirates and slavers and so on, and two, as we now understand, the Celestial Dragons themselves might just treat your island as fair game to come down and do their hunting competitions. That's why this whole story about Celestial Dragon hunting competitions and such is considered a rumor. Like Whitebeard talked about how he'd heard rumors about it. Sengoku talked about how he heard rumors about this, right? It's not common knowledge, because pretty much everyone that's in the world government system, inside the world government bubble, as far as they know, everybody that's actually playing by the rules, paying off the Celestial Dragons, yada yada, they're given a peaceful, seeming utopia where everything's taken care of, you're protected, yada yada. If the world government really doesn't like you, they might off you in secret like Ohara, but those incidents aren't common. If they were common, then the world government's whole illusion of protection and utopia falls apart. Where the real evil of the world government lies is in what they do to those islands that don't participate in the system. The horrors of the hunting competition are an example of this. It also makes sense why they wouldn't make this common knowledge among the marine forces themselves, because again, I've said in many past videos, most marines aren't evil. Most marines are brainwashed into thinking that what they are doing is helping the common man. Most marines are not aware of like the hunting competitions, because the Celestial Dragons really are only doing that to people who don't obey. They don't want that to be common knowledge spread around the world, or the whole system collapses. Oda even spelled it out for us in Dressrosa, which is that Dressrosa is meant to be a microcosm of the world at large. These are literal exact quotes. Doflamingo gives everybody who obeys him a seeming utopia. It's what he does to those who don't don't obey that suddenly get put into the category of basically trash, where Doflamingo will do whatever he wants to them in secret and nobody else will find out because they are now outside of his bubble. So now finally everything makes sense. Now beyond Garp, we got some important revelations with Zebek, Eris, and the Davy clan. So Eris is now an extremely interesting character because it's established that she was inducted into the Davy clan, essentially, once she got with Rox, but a lot of people have also pointed out that Eris's name seems to be part of that magic pentagram circle that Emu creates in Elbaf. So I'm seeing a lot of people seem to be a little bit suspicious of what Eris is really about here. I am personally going to give her the benefit of the doubt, but you never really know with Oda's plot twists. I think it would be really, really tragic if Eris turned out to be some sort of a traitor or somebody who tricked or manipulated Rox. But I found the entire scene of Rox trying to save Eris and his child while running from his own former family members who have been turned into puppets and demons, and Rox having to fight back against them, to be particularly tragic. Rox's entire story, the finale of it, comes to such a tragic conclusion. It's not just him, losing his life and his legacy here at God Valley, it's everything, right? Never gets to see his wife and child again, and he has to actually take down his own former family members with his two hands before presumably being defeated by Emu, the god that Rox devoted his life to trying to dethrone. Now, I do love that amidst all this, we did get to see Rox get a little bit of vengeance in with him taking out Garling. And the manner in which Rox took out Garling is of course very, very impressive, in that it didn't seem to give Rox too much trouble. In fact, he was holding off Garling with literally one hand while having to save his family at the same time and dealing with an entire army of other characters at the same time. Essentially identical to what Garp had to do at Hachinosu, with him holding off Aokiji while at the same time as having to deal with an army of Blackbeard pirates and Yonko officers while having to protect his subordinates at the same time. Although of course some people won't like to hear that. But of course, once all distractions were cleared and Rox got to focus just on Garling, it was easy, light work for him. And this is remarkably impressive because if we assume that Garling is likely something at least Admiral level plus, maybe Yonko level, we don't really know because Rox has been able to deal with characters of this caliber with pretty much no problem. He already killed an Admiral as a rookie, and now we see him doing this to Garling, who is potentially in the modern day maybe even the strongest Gorosei for all we know. The only time in One Piece that we've seen a character deal with other high-tier characters with such ease was probably like Roger with Odin, if you really think about it. So I'm really excited to see what Rox can do here against Emu with him going all out. But before we get into it, ships set sail now. This month, we're proud to present our brand new exclusive Legendary Ships collection. 16 iconic ships and their crews rendered in a vivid mid-century travel ad style. Coast the coasts in Roger's Oro Jackson, plummet the depths with Law's Polar Tang, bring the dawn with Luffy and the Thousand Sunny, along with many, many more. And this month, you can get a special buy two, get two free deal for any ships auto-applied at checkout. But that's not all. The first 30 people to use our special buy two, get two free deal will also get a bonus exclusive first edition Going Merry absolutely free. And the Merry can only be obtained by being one of the first 30. Once those 30 prints are gone, they will never be available ever again. And if you want an even bigger discount, you can get all 16 posters with our complete Legendary Ships bundle. And on top of all that, as a bonus this month, we're giving you free worldwide shipping for each order. Lastly, our Legendary Ships collection will last till the end of the month of October before going out of production. So collect quick before they set sail. And finally, that leads us to the big showdown at the end of this all. Now, I expected Emu to manifest through Gunko, because that was what was shown earlier at Elbaf, but as it turns out, Emu seems to be able to do this through any servant. And so I wonder now if Emu tends to just use whoever the highest ranking servant on any given island is. So for example, at Elbaf, I feel like Gunko may have been the highest ranking God Knight in authority, and so Emu took her over, whereas now here at God Valley, Saturn, as the only Gorosei, is probably the highest ranking subordinate to Emu, so maybe Emu took him over. Maybe that's speculative, who knows? I will say this, I do think Garling will be back up because just regeneration, the way that works. So I feel like the current setup that we have right now of Emu versus Whitebeard and Kaido and Rox, I think that's going to be temporary because the way the narrative has been pushing so far has been highlighting Rox, Roger, and Garp as the main trio of this entire flashback, the main trio of this era, and even this chapter concludes with Rox, Roger, and Garp's reactions to everything. It feels like the story is meant to focus on them more. So I think this is meant to give like a really good highlight moment for Whitebeard and for Kaido, and huge props to Whitebeard for coming through when nobody else is really having Rox's back at that moment, but Whitebeard just being the great moral figure that he is, coming through and saying like, hey, I feel like I owe you after so many years. And this is after Whitebeard has disrespected and expressed his dislike for rocks for years and years. At the end of the day, Whitebeard is a character with strong moral conviction, and that is his captain, whether or not Whitebeard wants to acknowledge him. So I just love that showing from Whitebeard. He did not have to do this at all, but that is the type of person that Whitebeard is. And Kaido wanting to show off his new powers and test them out for, you know, a trial run and everything, I think that's really cool as well. I do wonder if from this battle is where Kaido will get the perception that, you know what, devil fruits don't actually matter as much as haki, as Kaido later goes on to tell Luffy, but that remains to be seen. But I do think that things are going to shift over to Roger and Garp really being key figures in this fight alongside Rocks, which is why I do believe that Garling might be a backup after some regeneration to provide a bit of a distraction. Maybe Garling might take Whitebeard's attention for a short period of time or something like that. And Kaido, no disrespect to Kaido, Kaido of course becomes an absolute top tier and everything like that. I think at this point in time in the story, he might be a little bit outside of his weight class, so I don't know how long Kaido will necessarily last in this fight. So I have a video on that coming next Saturday actually, but I do believe things are headed towards a fated team up between the three most important figures of this era, Rocks, Roger, and Garp, against Imu. How Garp will get away with this without being fired remains to be seen, but I am giving this chapter an absolute 10 out of 10 without question. God Valley has been an absolute streak of just 9s and 10s out of 10 so far. And finally, a voice from the people, my top tier of patrons. So James says that given Garp's anger at the hunt taking place and Sengoku saying there was a rumor of the hunt but the marine vanished, with Garp telling him it is a reality, I think we will see Garp, Sengoku, and Suru objecting to the hunting games to Kong or someone higher up, much like we saw them complaining to Kong a few chapters ago, as I can't see them staying in the marines with it continuing, especially when Sengoku gets promoted. So two things. I think it's very possible that the Celestial Dragon hunting competitions might have been discontinued because it was realized that it was too dangerous to have them when pirates can just overrun the place. As we saw, if enough pirates overrun the place, then even all the God's Knights assembled don't stand much of a chance. And the fact that Imu himself had to come down, well, Imu probably doesn't have to keep coming down to handle pirates himself in the future, so it's possible the Celestial Dragon hunting competition is just called off in general just because of the dangers to these Celestial Dragons. But as for Garp, Sengoku, and Suru's reactions to all this, it is going to be very, very curious to see the route that they go down. I think that Garp is going to take big issues with this. That's already implied this chapter, and I personally believe it is very possible that all of this leads to the creation of Sword and an attempt to change the Marines and what they stand for from the inside. But that is one of many topics that I'll be tackling in next week's video, which is going to be an absolutely huge video, so stay tuned for that. And with that, I will talk to you all later.